Hey gang, so buying your fidgets from authorized resellers, stores, etc. is a great way to get your fidgets to you, to get what you've paid for, and to make sure that you're getting the right product. The problem is the brand new fidgets can get expensive pretty quickly, especially if you're buying more than one. So people tend to go to the Facebook groups to try to find secondhand fidgets. This can work out, but the problem is scammers are becoming more and more active in the groups. So we're going to go over some of the ways that you can hopefully protect yourself and maybe give these pieces of garbage a harder time in stealing your money. Let's go. Okay, so listen, none of these methods are foolproof, and frankly, some of them might feel like overkill, and that's totally fine. That's up to you. Really, this all just comes down to how badly your spidey senses start tingling if you start dealing with somebody. So I kind of play it safe, and unless I actually know the person directly, I just assume that they're trying to scam me, and then that forces me to kind of go through these steps just to make sure that I'm safe. And I'm not giving my money away to some douchebag that's trying to rip me off. Okay, so these aren't in any particular order. These are just a bunch of random things that I find are red flags. So the first is how long ago did the account join the group? I find a lot of these scammers, they join and then they post right away, like the day or the day before they join. Now, that's not foolproof because sometimes people do just join, for example, like a Loudy group because they have some Loudy stuff to sell. Or like the Modus Work buy sell trade group because they have a Wrapped and they didn't even know about the buy sell trade group and they just jumped in because they wanted to sell. So that's not a guarantee. That's just potentially your first red flag. So one of the things I do if I suspect somebody and they look a little weird in terms of like their behavior in the group, I will actually click on their profile and I'll go outside of the group and I'll actually look up their profile to see when it was created. Now sometimes, especially with Facebook, everything gets locked down, and so people tend to protect their privacy, and so that's understandable. But in a lot of cases, these scammers are idiots. So a lot of them just load their profiles up with friends that are actually other scam accounts they've created. The posts look weird. The wall is either completely empty or completely full of ridiculous stuff. So that's another way that I kind of have a look. Like I said, I'll go in and I'll just kind of check out their profile and just see if that's suspicious at all. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's another step I like to take. So this one is based on the activity in the group. Now, a lot of times if somebody's selling a fidget, they have to have bought that fidget at one point, and it's quite possible they bought it brand new. But a lot of people in our community, when they buy stuff, they talk about it and they let us all know in these other groups. So if I click on a brand new member, say somebody's selling something, and I click on their profile, I shouldn't say brand new member, but if I click on their profile, I can see if they're a brand new member or if they actually have group activity. Have they talked about fidgets before? Have they been looking for stuff? Are they active? Have they just said anything to show that they're a real person that's actually contributed to the community in some way? That tends to make me feel a little safer. So again, if it's like a blank profile, even if they've joined 6 months ago, but they haven't said a peep in the group, that at least sets off some warning bells for me. Now again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's a flag for me at least. It makes me a little cautious. Okay, this one is pretty obvious, but people still fall into it. Except for a couple people out there, Mark Chang being one of them, there are no Santa Claus fidget sellers. Most people are not giving you an insane deal. If you look at something and the price is like half the cost of what other people are selling it for, smarten up. Like it's pretty clearly or very likely some kind of scam. So if the price is really low, find out why. It's either busted, or it's just made up and it's meant to grab people. It's meant to go after the gullible people that, if you believe this thing is actually being sold for this cheap, then you may not be the type of person that really thinks about looking into whether or not this person actually is a scammer. That's what they're relying on. They're relying on gullibility. So stay away from these prices that are insane, or at least start, going through all the checks. So this one is an absolute flag. Most of the people in the groups know that the minute a seller just says, PM me for more information, PM me for pics, PM me for prices, they want you to send them a private message so that they can get into the chat and start talking to you in there. Mostly because the majority of group members that are active in the groups tend to look out for each other, and we're all always looking for scammers. So it's kind of easy after a while to recognize a scam post, which is why they don't post as much information anymore, because they get caught. It sends up red flags all over the place. So, either they're going to post something, and then if they catch you with the bait and you say, hey, I'm interested, they'll say, okay, well, let's go talk some more. And that's not normally an odd thing. I mean, I wouldn't discuss, finances or give my address in a group post. But my post is going to have some information in it first that everybody can see. The other thing is if you post in searching of, like, hey, I'm searching for something, and they just react right away and say, hey, I've got something for you over here. It's like, well, why didn't you post it already if it was for sale? So a lot of times those are a lot of scammers that just reach out and they just magically have whatever you need. So that's, again, not necessarily a scam, but that should set off some kind of flag for you to at least, start getting the gears going and start thinking about the fact that this could be a problem. Okay, I actually forgot to record this one, which is why the lighting looks a little different, because it's actually late at night now. My dogs are being idiots, barking, growling and stuff, but we're going to get through this. Vouches. Ask for vouches. Now, the trick with that is sometimes these scammers have gotten so good that they've created other accounts into the groups that vouch for themselves. The problem is, again, they're pretty stupid. So the vouches are pretty obvious. When you read them, that kind of looks like something a scammer would write. So always ask for vouches. Like, if you don't know the person, if you're new to the group, just say, can I get vouches for this person? And then check out the people that are vouching. Click on their profile. See if they've been active in the group. So nothing wrong with asking for vouches. Nobody will be offended. If they are, they haven't been in the community for very long, or they may in fact be a scammer, because most people aren't totally familiar with vouchers. So asking for a picture of the item they're selling with their name on a note somewhere in the picture is the minimum amount of work you should do. And they should be happy to do it. Anybody selling in these groups now, the majority of people will be fine with taking a picture. Everybody has a cell phone. At least most people have a cell phone. And, it's just, you take a Post-it note, whatever the hell is, a piece of paper, write your name on it, write the date, and then put the fidget over top of that, so that it's covering something a little bit to show that they're in the same kind of image. Most sellers will have no problem doing that. In fact, they've all started doing that in the group posts already without being asked. The problem with that at the same time, and we're going to address that in the next post, is that some of these idiots have gotten a little better at Photoshop or GIMP or any of these online photo editing tools, and they have started learning how to take an image and then fake in a note with their name and the date on it. The problem is they're not very good at it yet, so it's still pretty easy to detect, but it's there. So if you don't know what to watch out for, they are starting to do that. If you see somebody doing that for something you're trying to sell, ask other group members. Like, if they're sending you something in the chat, they're like, here's the pic, here's the note, and it looks a bit suspicious, reach out to somebody. Reach out to one of the admins of the group and just say, hey, what do you think of this? Does this look real or not? So this is a kind of a much harder one to fake. I'm a Photoshop person. I've been using Photoshop for about 25 years. I'm a graphics guy. So I'm actually used to manipulating images all the time, and I'll embed things in, I'll do compositing. So I would say I'm quite proficient at it. What's very hard is if somebody asks me to take a picture of a fidget and then write a note in there, I can fake that one. But then if they say, I'd like a couple of pictures of the same fidget and the same note from different angles, that gets really tough, because for me to for one, create the note in perspective the first time so it looks real and kind of matches the angle of the fidget, yeah, I might be able to do that. But second, I have to find someone else's pictures online that have multiple angles, which is very rarely done when people are selling. But second, I then have to try to recreate that note from the angle, so not only matching the original picture with the original note I did, but now I have to try to take that and copy that into different angles. That's a really tough thing, and that's a lot of work for a scammer to go through. So simply saying, hey, can you take a picture with your name and the date and a note, and then just take a couple pictures from different angles, just so I feel better about it. That's a really simple thing. Again, most sellers will do it. Some might think it's a pain in the ass. I mean, all right, that's up to you to deal with them if you want, but I would have no problems doing that if somebody asked me to. So this one is sort of the ultimate, which is ask them to record a video and just talk about it. Have them say your name in the video. Again, you'll figure out your relationship with the seller and the comfort level of what you can ask them, what you can what do you consider too much? Are you pushing it? But again, I would have no problem if somebody said, would you mind just doing, especially if they ask nice, right? Like, would you mind just recording a video for me with the fidget, just so I feel like 100% sure that it's you? And I would say, no problem. And I just hold up my phone. I would just look at it. I would look at the fidget, and then I'd point it at my face and say, see, here I am. Here's your fidget. That's it. It's a really easy thing to do. I mean, most of these things are selling for around $100 and up, so it's not a lot of effort to just take that extra step. I've seen in posts people complain and they go, I'm not going to do that. Why should I do that? It's enough that I give you my picture and the date. Like if I take a picture and put my date on it, that's up to you. You can ask them to go any further. If they don't want to, then you can decide, is this someone you want to do business with? Maybe they don't want to do business with you, so you kind of run the risk of that. But it's certainly a step that if they go to that level and you get that video of it, you can feel pretty safe that they actually have it in their possession. Okay, so this one is a bit of just like a little extra thing. There are a lot of times where we suspect and you think you're dealing with a scammer and you've got, the behavior that you think is scam-like, but it would be so nice to know for sure. So this is an extra step. This is not something you have to do. There are a lot of other things you can do, but this is just one of those things that, to be honest, it feels good because you can also sort of confront the scammer with the evidence. So finding images can be really long, because if you have to scroll through a group hoping to find a post with this image they've stolen, that can take a long time, especially scrolling through. You got to like keep on your mouse wheel constantly going down. So what you can do, and not everybody knows about this, is you can click on the media tab on the Facebook group. And what that'll do is that'll show you any bit of media, so typically images, that have been attached to a post. So what you get is just this spreadsheet of just all of the images. So it just makes it a lot easier to scroll through, and you can go through multiple groups like that. So again, this is kind of like, how far do you want to take it? Do you want to catch them? Do you want to prove it? What is nice is if you're trying to get a scammer kicked out of the group and you're going to report it to the admin, then having images to back it up, be like, look, here's Sean's post of images he put up like 2 weeks ago, and now this guy's using Sean's images, and here's the proof. Then that lets the admin know right away, okay, there's no question, boom. Then they're almost always like right there to kick the guy out, guy or girl, whatever. But typically the admins act really fast because nobody wants a scammer in their group. So this is one that people don't do as much, and I've seen that, and I wish they didn't stop at just blocking the person. Because I see that a lot. People say, oh yeah, I saw he was a scammer, so I just blocked him. Don't just block them. Report it to the admin. Because if the admin doesn't get the report, there is so much activity that goes on in groups that there's no way for the admin to know unless they just happen to be scrolling through the group one day and land on the post, which is really tough. I'm an admin for some other groups, non-Fidget related. I mean, I get scammers in my groups, but my members report it right away. And so I see it, it's flagged, I go and I delete it, I kick the person out, and that's the end of it. So don't just block a scammer. Click on the menu and report to admins or report to group admins, and that'll send a notification right away. Even if you're just kind of suspicious of it, you can send it, and then the admins have the option to delete the post in the user or to keep the post in the group. But at least you've kind of done, not that you've done your job, but you've helped out the group by just trying to clean things up, because it's not an easy job being an admin, especially in these buy-sell groups. I mean, yeah, it's not easy. So do the admins, do them a solid, help them out, and report the posts. So one thing you can do with paying, most sellers will say use friends and family. And the reason they do that, the reason normal people do that, is because there's an extra fee that gets charged if you go goods and services. That extra fee is, I think it's 5% of the overall cost. And then what that fee does is it's PayPal's guarantee that the buyer can get their money back if something goes wrong. The problem is it's an extra charge. Now, scammers will 100% of the time ask you to pay friends and family, because then there isn't that protection, or Venmo or something else. So you can't. I've dealt with people before or I actually had a buyer one time that they just asked if they could go goods and services, and I said no problem. I just need you to include that extra 5%, and they were totally fine with it, because to them it was worth the extra percentage to be comfortable. And now, if I'm wrong with this one, let me know. I know sometimes PayPal's policies change, but to the best of my knowledge, that's essentially why. So when people say FF only, they're referring to friends and family. And again, normal people ask that all the time, but scammers ask that 100% of the time. So this one is really just more of a last minute little tip to be aware of, is that bad grammar does not always mean a scammer. A lot of scammers that we deal with come from different countries, and so the English is a bit broken. It's easier to find them. They kind of out themselves a lot of times with the way they speak or the way they type. But there are also a lot of people from different countries that don't speak English that have been part of these groups forever, and they use translation software. A lot of the group admins actually use translation software. So don't necessarily assume that broken grammar or bad grammar necessarily means scammer. It might, but it also might have nothing to do with the scam. It might just be somebody using the software. Always report your scam in the group. And I don't mean report to the group admins a scammer. If you've been scammed, I know it's embarrassing, it's probably humiliating, and you're really not in the mood to post and have everybody go, well, I told you, did you look for this? Did you look for that? Did you idiot, why didn't you do the checks? Why didn't you do whatever? Screw people who do that. Honestly, I don't understand why people do that anyways. It just makes them feel good for some reason. But it's good of you to report the scam into the group, to say, hey, I just got ripped off by this guy. And you can say, I know, I didn't do all the right checks. I get it. I've learned my lesson. I'm just letting you people know that this account, whatever, John Doe, whatever it is, they also use stupid names, a lot of these scammers. Just letting you know that this account just scammed me, because the scammer will also be in multiple groups too. So getting the scammer kicked out of one group doesn't necessarily kick them out of all the groups. So, take one for the team. and just let us all know that you've been scammed. I won't be one of the ones making fun of you for doing it. I'm sure unfortunately, there are some people that love to do that. Who gives a shit? Just ignore them, block them, anything. But, you know, just know that you're doing the community a service by talking about it. Okay, gang. Well, that was a probably way too long preachy video on some tips to avoid scamming or getting scammed. I hate these people. They are human garbage. They are not even human. They are just garbage wearing clothes. Honestly, they're the worst people ever. These scammers are trash. And I just said garbage, trash, whatever. So it's important that we get rid of them. It's important that we humiliate them when we can. We flag them. We get them kicked out of the groups because it's a great community. I mean, we all just love doing this. We all have this mild addiction at playing with these things. It brings us joy. It brings other people joy to see what we've got to share. So, you know, hopefully this has helped you a bit in maintaining that joy and maybe avoiding kind of a dark cloud in trying to buy your favorite fidget. So good luck, and that's it. I'm always screwing up these extras.